Hey, everybody, it's Tim Sackett, HR Famous. We're back. And I'm actually today, I have a guest. And this is funny thing is like, John, when I first started HR Famous, we were like no guest. It was just like Katie and Jessica Lee and Madeline and I, all of which you know. For those who don't know, Jon Stross is the CEO, co-founder of Greenhouse, which is one of the top ATSs in the world. And I actually love talking to John because he's one of the guys or the people in our space within HR technology, recruiting technology, whatever I want to say. He's just real. He's going to tell you like it is. He's going to say all these things. And he just recently became famous, or should I say infamous, in the Wall Street Journal. And so, John, welcome. Go ahead. I kind of introduced you, but hi, how are you doing?
Thanks for having me on, Tim.
So I want to start the title of the Wall Street Journal article, which we will laugh about. Fake job postings are becoming a real problem. 1 in 5 jobs advertised is fake, quote unquote, or not filled. According to a new analysis, more soul crushing than ever. That was an actual quote from you, John. The soul crushing from ever.
Stand by that.
It is. But we're going to talk about this. There's a couple quotes out here. And by the way, the author of this, Lynn Cook, is a Pulitzer Prize winner, right? So a great journalist by award winning, and still some things are taken out of context, and we're going to talk about that. Companies have a number of nefarious and normal reasons for posting not quite real jobs. It was talked about. Here is the one that got me because, she put in here, Strauss notes most of Greenhouse's 7,500 plus customers, which include really major brands like HubSpot and Major League Baseball, don't post ghost jobs. And then the very next paragraph was still nearly 70% of companies using Greenhouse posted at least one ghost job in the second quarter of last year, blah, blah, blah. And you were like going, so I want to start there. Are people really posting ghost jobs, fake jobs? Is this a real thing?
Let's define our terms first, right? What are we talking about here? So overall, what we're hearing from candidates was, it's terrible out there, right? We feel like we're getting ghosted, bait and switched, all these horrendous stories. You can watch it on like Job Search TikTok, if that's still up. And so we start surveying candidates, like thousands of candidates, not even people applying to Greenhouse companies, just any company. And you're hearing all these like horrendous stories. And one of the things that came up in there was a suspicion that like, hey, I'm applying to this job and I don't even know if they're hiring. Because it's been up forever and what's actually happening there. And so we started researching in the data of like, well, how often do companies ghost candidates? How often do they not send out rejection emails? How often do you see they close the job, they hired someone and there's 500 people sitting there in the pipeline that they never talked to, right?
There was nothing ever done with that candidate.
And in fact, like it does happen, right? Not everybody, but it does happen. And then what we also saw is there were jobs that were posted and like nothing happened for the whole job, right? They didn't interview people. They didn't reject people. They didn't make a hire. And those were called ghost jobs, right? And I think that it resonates because people have that feeling like, oh, that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
And so, I think it happens. I think that it's probably not nefarious. There's not like a great reason to like scam people by putting up fake jobs.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a bit taken out of context. I think it's a lot of times sloppiness, right?
Yeah.
It's people are like, we posted a bunch of jobs. We actually pulled one back. We forgot. Or maybe they posted the job and they're actually hiring somebody internally. Like there's various reasons of what happens inside an org.
That was the big disconnect. And it's not just the Wall Street. I mean, everybody, it seems like in the last like probably 9 to 12 months, this has been talked about a lot. And it always gets really good traffic. It always gets, because like you said, it's a super pain point for candidates.
Right.
If you apply to a job and you know within your heart of hearts, in your background, your experience, your education, your skills, like I know I'm the great fit for that job. And then you hear nothing.
Yeah.
In your mind, it's easy for you to context that and go, they're posting a job they're not even hiring for. Why would they do that?
Right. Or you've made this big investment of time and emotion. Like you imagined yourself in that role. You found like, I want to be in that role. And you filled out the whole thing. Your expectation was that somebody would read it and consider you. And if they don't think, they would at least tell you that.
Yeah.
Like the metaphor I always use is that imagine you walked into a deli and there was like 200 people in line in front of you. Like you turn around and walk out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you're not going to wait 2 hours for a sandwich, right? Or if you did, you'd like see there were 200 people in front of you and you get to the front of the line, you wouldn't be like, hey, how come that took 2 hours? Like, no, your expectation was you saw the whole 200 people. With job search, you don't get that. You just see the application, you apply. You don't realize that you're 1,000th in line.
Well, someone's going to go, wait a minute, LinkedIn does that. You're like, well, not really. When you do the LinkedIn thing, it shows, oh, there's 375 people who've applied to this. They don't really know if you applied.
Yeah, they don't know, like, are they still active? Like, what kind of, so there's no expectation set of like, are you going to get seen or not? And so you just feel like this disconnect that why didn't they respond back? That's really disrespectful.
Yeah.
And I get that, right? And so I think that generally the reason the media has paying so much attention to this is because it resonates with so many people that like everybody's been a candidate. You know how bad it feels when you apply. Now we've got this AI arms race thing where you go on and everyone's saying, well, I applied to 100 jobs. I applied to 200 jobs. If you're not applying to 100 jobs, you're not competitive. And so they're in arms race with each other, and there's FOMO that you have to apply to all these jobs, which of course we know what's happening behind the scenes is that the companies are now getting inundated with 1,000 applications that they don't want to read all of them. And so it hasn't solved the problem for anybody, right?
Well, there's a weird thing that's going on too, where if you think about like how candidates are using AI, not just to apply to a lot of jobs quickly, they're also using AI to build a specific profile, resume, application for each job that more closely matches. So now we have doubling down. Hey, by the way, I can apply to more jobs quickly. Also, I'm going to make each profile match the job description so closely that whatever like recruiters looking at are going to go, oh my gosh, this person is a perfect match.
Right.
But now you have on the other side, you have these recruiters going, I have double the amount of applications and I have way more people that look like they're a closer match, but I have really no idea if they are or not because everybody's using AI to kind of do this, you know.
Let me finish one last point on the candidate side, then let's switch over and talk about that recruiter side and say, what's actually happening there? How are they grappling with this, right? The last point I'd make about the candidate side is one of the dominant emotions we hear from folks is helplessness. Is that you need a job. Like it's a big, major thing in your life. Maybe you're miserable at your current job. You're looking for the next thing. And the whole process is opaque. You don't know where you stand with anybody, right? You don't really feel like you have the ability to differentiate because no matter how well you personalize your resume, everyone else is doing the same thing with the AI, right? And so the whole thing's out of your control, and that feels horrendous.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think there's so much attention and heat on this is because like that's all really honest, right?
Yeah.
Now, if we switch over to the company side, it's been leaner times the last year or two. And so you've got leaner recruiting teams who are being asked to do more with less, right?
And more legitimate candidates looking for jobs, you know.
And then you say like they're getting way more inbound applicants, right? And you say, oh, well, that makes their life so easy. They got applicants. It's like, yeah, yes and no. Like, because you hear them say is like, do these people really want this job? Or are they robo applying to 100 different companies?
Jon, it's so easy though for both candidates and recruiters to blame each other on this ghosting thing. Should a candidate, like if they accept an interview, ghost that interview or ghost the job? No, they should. That's terrible.
Right.
Should a recruiter also ghost a candidate that applies to a job? No, it's awful. And here's what I know, because like I know enough of the technology for Greenhouse that says, hey, if a recruiter got 200 people that applied and they already had an internal candidate they decided to hire, easily with like one button, they could disposition the 200 that would get an email that said, hey, thanks, no thanks, please apply again. Here's a 10% coupon for an appetite, whatever you want. You do all crazy stuff, right? The technology could do that. But we know that the data from you guys already know this, but the talent board data with Kevin Grossman as well is like close to 50% of candidates are still saying they don't get disposition. They never hear. My own son, Cameron, when he was going through his job search, classically had kept an entire spreadsheet. It was like 118 jobs that he applied for. I think it was under 20% actually ever replied to anything for him. It's just shocking that that's the case.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I also there's lots of theories as to why people don't do it, whether it's sloppiness or like, oh, I'll just keep them engaged, whatever.
Yeah.
I've always thought there's another thing, which is like the emotional toll of pressing that button.
Yeah.
Like there's a button in Greenhouse you can press to say, I'm going to reject 500 people.
Yeah.
When you press that button, you're ruining the day of 500 people. And like, it is better to let them know than to not let them know. But I also think about the psychic weight of pressing that button and how much as a recruiter, your job is not in hiring, it's in rejecting.
Yeah.
And that's really difficult.
I just think we do a terrible job of communicating to candidates the realities of what's going on behind the scenes. Like again, like my same son will go, he'll laugh, he'll go, Dad, I just got a rejection email from a job that I applied to 270 some days ago, whatever. And it's usually at the end of the year. It's like December 29th. They're cleaning up for the end of the year and they're just dispositioning like crazy. And so like those things go out and like, he just is like, I don't understand. I'm like, well, and you try to explain to him, like, again, that sloppiness of it, or having a hiring manager open a job and you go, hey, look, we got you these candidates. You haven't done anything. We're sitting on this for 6 months now. Can we just close it? And they go, no, I still want to see who's applying.
So there's a really important dynamic you just hit on there, right? Like this is counterintuitive to people who aren't in the business, right? Is you'd think, oh, the market shifted. There's way more candidates than jobs. It's easy to get candidates. You should hire faster. Nope, it's the opposite of that, right? In the opposite, in 2021, whenever there's a big boom, right? The companies realized, ooh, the candidates could go to there's tons of hiring going on. The candidates have lots of choice. So if you find a candidate that you think is good, you grab them immediately. Yeah. So hiring managers were forced into really fast decisions. Right now, it's the opposite. They're like, there's always more folks out there. I'm going to wait for that perfect unicorn. So it drives the recruiter crazy because they're like, oh, come on, let's go. And it means you're now stalling all these other candidates. And so it is another dynamic that's squeezing the recruiters and creating this bad experience for everyone as the hiring managers think they can get away with being slow.
So what can we do for candidates? From a technology perspective, you think there's so many things that we could do. I mean, obviously, candidates are using AI. Do recruiters use AI to start giving feedback? I know that becomes like illegal. Like so many companies are like, well, we can't use AI to match. And so I've heard that consistently. And like, well, I wouldn't say match. They could use AI to match, but they can't use it they don't want to use it to force rank.
Right. But they can like infer a bunch of like insights from the resume.
We feel like our humans better at force ranking than the AI. Like, I don't know, whatever.
So I have a bunch of theories that predict features we're about to launch.
Yeah.
So this is going to be like totally self-serving as I talk about some of this stuff.
I know, but again, we have to figure out a better way to like communicate with candidates.
So I think I have 3 theories. One is around how to reset the power dynamic to make it not so uneven. And I'll talk about how to do that in a second. Number 2 is how do we create and surface new data beyond what's on the resume? New things to differentiate people, to give candidates the ability to like say more about themselves and companies better ways to filter. And then 3 is how do we make it a race to the top? Because this is one of the other things that like nobody talked about in these articles, but is actually like one of the most interesting things is that a whole bunch of companies out there are awesome.
Yeah.
They're not ghosting people. Yeah. They're not doing ghost jobs. They are treating people awesome. And if a company is trying that hard right now in this moment to differentiate themselves and treat you awesome, how do you think it's going to be to work at that company?
Yeah.
These are the places everybody wants to work at. And like, let's make that easier.
Yeah.
Those are my 3 theories. So like how we do that. First one, reset the power dynamic. I think we just give candidates some transparency and some control, right? So the ability to know like, what is the status of my application? How about turn around? We launched a feature already called job alerts, where it's like, instead of you having to stalk this company and saying, I really want to work at this company, I want to know when they launch a new job. It's like, no. On every greenhouse customer, you can go and you can sign up for an alert and say, let me know every time a relevant job to me launches at that company, and I get to go apply first, right? Just ease the burden of the whole thing, right? Like you create a profile on Greenhouse once, and then we can one click pre-fill the job application everywhere.
Yeah.
Like nice, create more applications, but like that's nice and easy. So there's a pile of things I think we can do to just give them more control, even self-scheduling, right? Like just control over your own time.
Yeah.
To say, when do you want to interview versus here's the slot we have, right? Like these are all very helpful things.
Like, so when you think about, hey, I'm a candidate, I applied to this job, I can log into my dashboard and see where my application is. What I would love to be able, if I'm a candidate, though, is also go, okay, hey, nothing's happened. My candidate was submitted. The recruiter has it in their inbox, blah, blah, blah. That's my status, right?
Yeah.
I would love to see the job status. So to go, oh, by the way, though, there is 180 people that also applied. By the way, there's 7 that have been screened. There's 1 that's actually interviewing. Like, to me, then I go, okay, at least I know something is happening.
We're debating this actively as to how to do this.
Yeah.
the companies are hesitant to share all of that.
Oh yeah, I get it.
Because they want to have, they'd rather on balance have more applicants than less, right?
But it also goes back to that power dynamic too. There's a little bit of this, hey, I don't want them to see what's going on. I don't want them to know I have 200 applicants, but I've only screened 7.
Right. Like, or just like expose like, hey, you're 1,000th in line at the deli. Don't bother, move on.
Yeah.
Like the companies don't want to say that. There's no win in that for them, they feel like. And so we're debating what data can we expose that the company is okay with showing, that the candidate gets some clue as to what's happening.
Yeah.
Right. So agree.
Mm-hmm.
Next piece of it, the whole create surface new data. I don't want to give it all away, but a lot of it's just about intent. Is that how can we let people express intent and use that as a filter? So a simple one is that job alerts feature, right? So imagine you subscribe to this company. Every time they open a job, you're like, yes, I want that one. So let's say as a company, you now have 800 applicants. And 5 people have been like subscribed to your company for a month or 2. And the other ones are doing robo-apply. It doesn't mean they're qualified. It's not a skills assessment, right? But it is a show of intent.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, that's actually relevant.
Let's unpack that a little, because I want candidates and also like obviously other HRTA people listening to this to really understand that what you found in the data is that if somebody joins your talent network and all of this stuff, there's a greater desire for them to actually want to come work for your company versus somebody that's just like, hey, I'm jamming in my resume to every company like across the board. What I would love to see is some longitudinal data to say, so yeah, we made more of these hires from this intent, but also from a performance standpoint, like it's better than these cold hires, right?
So obviously we've got to get everybody to do it and make the hires so we can collect that. But I think what we're going to do is there's been a number of different signals we're going to allow people to create about what is the bullseye of the job that they absolutely want. And so can we match people on their intent and their desire, not just their current skills? And then C, do they get hired then more frequently and do they actually succeed?
I'm a big believer in that. I believe that if you're a fan, because like we always think, it's just the unicorn brands that people are going to want to go work for. Like, no, like you might be the company down the street from somebody where their best friend worked and they just had great things to say. And they're like, I really want to work there too. It's like, it's 2 miles from my house and like everything just aligns perfectly. And I love your mission and blah, blah, blah. Like everybody has fans. You might not have as many fans as Google, but you still have fans.
Yeah. And what I'd say is like, if you ever do bother to read cover letters, what you will see is that many of the cover letters are generic or they're written by AI or whatever. And a couple will come through and you're like, no, this person really wants this job.
Yeah.
They've done their research. They want this company and this job. And that stands out. And whether they're qualified or not, you do give them a second look.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do we like mechanize that and make that easier to express? Because I think it's relevant. To me, like the logical metaphor for that is this whole thing really is college admissions. College admissions, it used to be when you and I, we both typed things out on a typewriter and we had unique essays for every school. Yeah. We both applied to 3 schools, right? I'll speak for you, right? Now it's like, the common app. You could do once, apply once, hit 25 check boxes. Yeah. And now you've applied to all these places and the schools are absolutely inundated.
Yeah.
And so they're saying, oh my God, what do we do? And so they created a system of intent called early admissions.
Yeah.
Where you can say you can apply to 25, but you can only pick 1. And if you say yes, then you're going.
Yeah.
And the schools have realized that's how they fill their class.
Yeah.
Is they get a whole bunch of people who actually want to be there. And like, I think that's what's going to happen with a job search.
I like that. I like that concept.
Is that filter of like, I want to hire a bunch of people who want to be here. Like,
well, and if you talk to most hiring managers and most executives, they're just like, I have this conversation a dozen times a year where there's like, if you just found me 25 people who wanted to be here, like we would teach them how to do this job. Now, again, that's not every job, but like so many jobs are that way.
It's a relevant filter, right? It's not totally like you can hire. And so we're creating that. And then the third one was around making a race to the top was that, to my earlier point, like there's a lot of awesome companies who are, and I think the candidates are figuring this out. There's a whole set of companies out there who say, we're going to win as a business because of our people. So we're going to like invest in recruiting, invest in management and our culture. This is going to be how we differentiate as a business, or one of the ways we're going to differentiate is our people practices. And like, those are the companies you kind of want to work for, right? And there's a whole nother set who are going to say, people are kind of a commodity. And so we can get away with treating them not so well. And like, we've probably all worked in both at this point, right?
Yeah.
And I think the candidates are figuring out which are which, or they're trying to. And I would have never believed this like 5 years ago, but I think it's becoming true now, is that the candidates actually pay attention to the ATS now. We hear it every day. Oh, we love when a company uses Greenhouse. That's a good sign. And if I see they're using those other guys, like, I just close the browser window.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to bother. And it's not just because the application's bad. It's because the company is telling you they don't care.
Yeah.
And so we launched this feature, Greenhouse Verified, where it's like, no, the company can earn basically verification badges that they're going to be fair and transparent and communicative.
Yeah.
Like, they don't ghost.
Yep.
And basically, like, they're not badges that you desire. They're badges you have to earn based on like how you actually treat people.
Yeah.
And so let's create a race to the top and like have companies compete and like win these badges and show candidates. Let's create a new expectation that candidates get to see, oh my God, this is awesome. These companies are the ones who are trying super hard. And so I want to highlight all these awesome companies.
Hey, I'm Katie Van Horn.
And I'm Jackie Clayton.
We're your hosts of the Inclusive AF podcast, where we take on DEI, leadership, and HR without all the corporate fluff.
That's right. We've got decades of experience, a lot of opinions, and zero tolerance for performative anything.
Every week, we dig into what it really takes to build inclusive workplaces with honesty, strategy, and a few side eyes.
We'll talk about the tough stuff, power dynamics, privilege, what's broken in the system, and how we can all do better.
And don't worry, it's not all heavy. We bring receipts, laughs, and real talk from people actually doing the work.
Think of it as your weekly dose of truth, tips, and a little tea to help you lead with intention and show up for your people.
So if you're ready to push past the buzzwords and get into the actual work of inclusion,
you're in the right place. So subscribe to the Inclusive AF podcast.
New episodes drop every week.
Catch us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We'll be here breaking it down one inclusive convo at a time.
Here's one of the problems we saw. Like, we did a big candidate survey, and one of the questions we asked them was like, hey, if you apply to a job and you get one of these thanks, no thanks kind of emails, do you consider that you've gotten the feedback you wanted? 87% said no, it's spam. Basically, they don't consider that communication. So then we go, okay, well, shoot. Like, I mean, again, going back to the recruiter side, if I have 250 people who apply, I can't give personalization back to them. I do think with AI, we can probably get a little bit better, right?
To your point, there's a legal issues if you want to be,
Yeah, I don't think we would ever go back and say, hey, I'm going to give you feedback. Like, hey, you applied to this job and you have no background for this, right? And like, let AI go forward and do that.
Right. I think people are nervous to like let the AI interpret their scorecard and say, here's why we're saying no, and like write the email and send it to the candidate.
No, yeah.
I think people are nervous about that.
What I'm interested in to see though, if there could be a little bit more back and forth where a candidate goes like, you get this email says, hey, thank you for applying. Like, we've found someone that fit better, blah, blah, blah. And they go, can you tell me, right? Like, why I was never even considered, or like, and maybe like, and then actually having a response that says like, well, I wish I could, but again, we had 300 people that applied for this job. And
typically that's not a one-time conversation. It's like, well, the person says, no, I actually do have that feedback. I do have that experience. It's like, okay, now you're going to go back and forth with 250 different people.
Yeah.
And that's why folks avoid the conversation. It's tough. I mean, I think there is like some opacity that is inherently built into it.
I always had this concept, which everyone always shoots down immediately, right? But if you were a TA team, and like it's always back to the capacity. We don't have the capacity to be able to give personalized feedback. And let's say, and again, there's some inequity here, but I just play along with this game for a minute and said, hey, if you want real feedback about your application, you can push this button and purchase 20 minutes with a recruiter for $25, and you'll get real feedback. And people are like, oh my God, that's horrible. Like, then it's inequity. If only people that could afford it. And I'm like, but let's think about potentially how can we get feedback, right? Because now as a head of TA, I could go, look, I'm going to just hire a feedback team. I have 10 people, right, that are actually going to do this. And we're actually funding it. And does that then, do now people go, shoot, like I just talked to ABC company and holy crap, like I got the best feedback ever on my application and I didn't pay for it, but like it was amazing.
Yeah.
And it immediately gets shut down. And I'm like, okay, well, if they can't pay for it, could AI then maybe one day be that, right? Again, do we run into too many legal things when the AI goes, hey, you went to U of M. That's a shitty school. We don't like it. Nah, I'm just kidding, John. Like you went to U of M. It's a great school. So did my son.
I was like, we got through 26 minutes without making any jabs about Michigan or Michigan State. That's like a record for us. I mean, I hear you. I hear like the motivation that I don't know. I can see why everybody shoots it down. There's problematic in there.
Like we don't come up with a solution.
Right.
The solution is we don't have capacity to give real feedback on every application. So exactly then how would you actually do it? Again, we go back to the start of this conversation of the ghosting, or what people feel. And like the core problem is we have too many people applying to the jobs to actually give them real feedback.
Yeah, and I think also you have to think about it by stage of the interview process, right? So 800 people apply, and you end up with like 20 people that you do a phone screen of, and call it 5 people you do a full in-person interview with, right? I hear a lot of folks say those 5 people, you owe them a conversation.
I actually think you owe personal feedback on the disposition to the 20 you screened.
Right. So different folks play, but like those 5 that you asked them to spend 4 or 6 hours with your company.
For sure.
You probably owe them a phone call, right? Where
oh my gosh! How many of those horror stories have we heard where someone said, "Yeah, I went through 6 interviews, didn't get the job, and I just got the no thanks email." You're like, "What?
Right?
How could you ever do that?"
So when we talk about like ghosting, we talk about people feeling really bad. A portion of it is the folks who are in the 800 who applied and never heard anything. And they're like, "Yeah, man, like I applied to 100 jobs and I only heard from 20% of them, and like that feels bad."
Yeah.
They're like, no, I got through. I did 6 hours of interviews and then heard nothing and then got a forum email. And the company would say, "Oh, we sent the rejection email.
Yeah.
We didn't ghost them." It's like, yeah, you did. Right. And so they walk away feeling horrific. And like, there's a couple different problems in there.
By the way, I totally don't espouse to this theory that you can't give candidates feedback because of legal risk. I think we've made that up over decades. Can I go to a candidate and say, "Hey, you didn't get the job because you're fat"? Like, no. Like, what moron would do that, right? But like, if you're actually doing the right things and you're having a great, interview process, and you're, going through the, and asking the same questions and standardized interviews, blah blah blah, you should be able to go to every candidate and actually say, "Hey, here's exactly why this person got the job and you didn't."
Yeah,
and there's no legal risk there.
The problem is a lot of people don't do all that stuff, right? There's a lot of people who don't have that. You go look at their actual like documentation on why they made the decision they made, and there ain't much there. And so if you had to say, AI, look at all the people who didn't get the job and look at the documentation of their scorecards and compare it to the person who didn't get hired and try to summarize why they didn't get the job, AI can't find insight where the raw material's not there.
And I've actually worked with heads of TA that were trying to like set up like standardized like interviewing, like let's blah, blah, blah. And the legal team was like, we want 0 interview notes.
Right. Yeah. Every once in a while we run into a company who says we want no notes, we want no documentation at all.
Because they see that as more legal risk. You're like, oh my.
Right. And we're like, wait, why? And so we said, well, one, they're definitely not going to buy our product when they say that. And we said, but like, aren't you nervous about the legal risks or whatever? And they said, no. We know that our team is super discriminatory. We know they're making decisions based on totally bad reasons. We don't want that written down.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I can't help you.
I know. Yeah. We can't help you.
Yeah. Can't help those folks.
All right. So let's put a bow on this. Fake jobs are a made up concept by media. I would say there's like 0.0001 is a fake job. Now, the only thing we didn't talk about was evergreen jobs, and the problematic of evergreen jobs is for those uninitiated within the TA space or candidates that don't know what that means. An evergreen job is for companies that hire, let's say we hire a certain kind of salesperson and we're going to hire 100 of them a year. So we might hire, 10 a month kind of thing. This week, I might not hire that person, or I might not even be interviewing, but we constantly have the job open because we know we're constantly going to be hiring somebody. Like, in fact, we might go weeks, months before we would hire somebody. but we know we're constantly looking for these kinds of skill sets. And so we have this job out there. I think a lot of people feel, a lot of candidates feel, well, that's a fake job. And like, and the recruiting side, we go, no, because it's so hard to find talent when we need it. We constantly are trying to get out there and find the skill sets so that we can come back to you when we do have that opening and go, yes.
And that's one where the stats of how many people have applied are really misleading because that might have been over the last 5 years, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I think my takeaway wouldn't quite be like, that's all fake news. I'm like, there is lots of bad behavior by companies, right? There is lots of like, gaslight the candidates and say, no, none of this bad stuff is happening. It's like, no, it really is crappy.
Before we got on, I told you, I'm like, for somebody, like a candidate that ghosts an interview or ghosts a first day of employment or whatever, they're a terrible person. A recruiter that ghosts a candidate, they're also a terrible person. Like, you didn't say that, I said that. And I believe truly, so when someone tries to tell me, it's like, oh, well, these candidates ghost us. And then the candidates go, well, these recruiters ghost us. I'm like, both those behaviors are awful behaviors. Neither should happen.
But and the reality is also there is a lot of scam and frauds out there from both sides right now. And we're hearing it from everywhere. We're hearing from candidates who are like, I'm getting all these reach outs from companies and it's not from that company.
Fraud stuff where people get talked into like buying a computer with their own credit card and stuff, like weird stuff that's going on. I'm like, oh, I feel awful because those are the people that desperately want that job so much that they're willing to spend their own money on some weird codes and gift cards to somebody thinking like it's real. And you're like, oh, no.
Yeah, and then on the other side, we're hearing companies who are like, yeah, we went through this whole interview process, and we're pretty sure that like the person who got interviewed and the person who showed up was on the same day, and it was nefarious. Yes. Like they were trying to steal our data. Like there's all this skepticism now in the market from both sides, and you're just like, like I have empathy on both sides. I don't want to tell anybody that like it's all fine, you're making it up. I mean, no, like there's all sorts of bad stuff happening. And so the question is like, how do you find the good companies? How do you stand out?
Yes.
Right? How do you make life a little easier?
And I don't think there's any other hiring system on the market right now that's doing the kind of the recruiting or like team credentialing that you guys are doing with your badges, right? It says like, hey, this isn't based on them. Oh yeah, we check the box and we'll do that, John, but they don't do it. It's based on their data, right? It's hard data that either you're doing this or not, and you're going to earn this. I think is a big deal. I think it's bigger than what people think because you're saying, look, I can go to these 7,500 plus like greenhouse customers and know which ones are actually doing the real thing. And when we both know how hard it is to do the right thing.
That's right. And so we're going to make a big push to our customers to get as many people turn on as possible and opt into all of these things because we just think it's such a win for them. They're all generally talk to them. They're like, yeah, I want to show off that we're trying really hard and we're doing well. And it's more under their control than say Glassdoor, which everybody's like, Glassdoor can be useful, but it might be like 1% of people who ever fill it out. And so the idea of, no, I get to actually show that like we're trying really hard to treat candidates well and also create some like internal incentives inside the company to say, hey, don't ghost people because you're going to cost us this verification badge.
Yeah.
That's the behavior we're trying to create.
John, I want to end with this and try to help candidates. So a candidate, like we know it's difficult out there right now. You made that perfectly clear in the Wall Street Journal article. What advice do you have to them when they feel like they're being ghosted, but they really want the job at the company? What can they do?
I think I have two pieces of advice I'm giving to folks right now. One is, the truth is there is a set of pre-qualified candidates who jump to the front of the line. And internal people who already work at the company are one of those. Yep. Referrals are another one of those. Yeah. Folks referred by actually a staffing agency because the company, because they're pre-qualifying them. Yeah. A lot of hires come out of those buckets, right? That may not be fair, right? Because not everybody has the same networks, but that is the reality of what happens. So if you can network around, informational interview, it may not be your best friend, but it's a friend of a friend. Somebody can refer you in and say, hey, I met this person. That helps, right? Put yourself in the recruiter's shoes. They're looking for any excuse to not read 1,000 resumes. Yeah. And so they have that extra signal, they will. So I think that is a thing to do. The other thing is just like emotional advice is I think people take it really personally, as we started with. Like, you apply, you're like, I think I'm great for this job. Nothing happens. You're like, wow, they don't think I'm great. And you start doubting yourself.
Yeah. No, it has nothing to do with you.
It's not about you. It's not. And like, I know it's ridiculous. It's not about you. Yeah. It's what's happening inside of that company.
Yeah.
don't take it personally. It doesn't help.
So good. I want to ask you realistically, and I know this is going to be a ballpark number, how many people reach out to you that are U of M grads looking to network on an annualized basis? Realistically.
Honestly,
not many, right?
Not many.
Yeah.
No.
And that's, to me,
not many
that's the shocking part. It's such a great,
right.
it's one, if you have a U of M degree, it is one of the most universally recognized high quality degrees everywhere.
Yeah.
And yet I have people reach out to me and I'm like, and they'll say, oh my gosh, I want to get in this company. And they're like a U of M grad. I'm like, and I'll quickly get on LinkedIn and go, there's 75 other U of M grads at that company. Why have you not sent them a note to connect and say, hey, I really want to come work here? You're more likely to help your alumni than anybody else.
God help you if you're an Ohio State alum reaching out.
Oh, geez. No one's getting, no. Do they have alumni? No, I'm just. So, but like, to me, that's the crazy part, is like the lack of networking for purpose. We both get this like on LinkedIn too. When someone loses a job, immediately all of a sudden you get the message on LinkedIn when you haven't heard from them in 3 years. You're like, oh, come on, like, be better than that. But I still think leveraging your network, if you're getting ghosted by a company, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, there's some way that somebody, or somebody knows somebody in that company, and work that angle, right? Work that angle in terms of trying to figure that out.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's like, if you realize the perspective of that recruiter and that they're not sitting there being like, oh, I have so many candidates, life is so easy. Like, they're utterly overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And so like make their life easy by somebody inside the company being like, hey, check out my friend Sally,
So much easier. Jon, thank you so much. I love that you just tell it exactly like it is, and you don't know how hard that is to get people to talk that way. So,
okay, I hope I'm not going to get in trouble for being so honest.
No, I don't. I mean, I don't think there's one thing, right? I think you're very open with. It's so hard to be a candidate, it's so hard to be a recruiter, and again, we're trying to figure out how to make this all better. And
honestly, like internally here, like we're really excited about the stuff we're launching because we just feel like it's so bad out there on both sides. Yeah. And we think we have a bunch of ideas that could be really impactful and helpful. And so we're psyched at what's going to happen the next couple of months.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You guys can check him out on LinkedIn, Jon Stross. Check out Greenhouse at greenhouse.io. Again, one of the top ATSs in the marketplace. And again, it's led by someone that's willing to really understand the marketplace in a different way. So, Jon, thank you so much.
Thanks, man.